Have you ever wondered if animals feel something like gratitude? He saved a helpless cub, but what the lions did next is unbelievable. This isn't just another one of those internet stories where you look at it and think, can you believe that happened? This is about a connection so pure, transcended the barriers of species. With our busy routines and the noise of life, we sometimes forget that the animal world is full of valuable lessons and surprises. What happens when a dog, a being we know so well, comes face to face with one of the most majestic and dangerous animals on the planet in its most vulnerable form? It was the story of Martin, a forest ranger who had seen it all, and his loyal companion, a black Labrador with eyes that seemed to understand the universe. The two formed an inseparable pair, communicating without needing words. But it was on a day when nature showed all its force that this dog's loyalty was tested in a way no one ever imagined. The challenge they faced changed their lives forever. And yours, you can be sure, won't be the same after you find out what happened next. Nature, you know, has a beauty that is intimidating. That afternoon, the sky, which was once a vibrant blue, suddenly turned a heavy, almost suffocating linen gray. The warm air, filled with the smell of wet earth, announced that a violent storm was on its way. Anyone who has never been caught off guard by a sudden change like that can throw the first stone. We, with all our technology, still get lost easily when the force of nature decides to show who's in charge. For Martin and Shadow, however, intuition was the best tool. Did you know that dogs have such sharp hearing that they can hear thunder from more than 60 kilometers away, long before we can? As the fine rain began to fall, Shadow's gaze turned serious. It wasn't just the noise, but the smell of the water rising, the pressure in the air that only he could feel. The river, which had been winding along peacefully, turned into a furious monster, its brown and loud waters advancing. And that's when the danger became real. The patrol turned into a race against time, against the force of a relentless flood that was swallowing the landscape. The tension in the air was palpable. The lesson here is simple, but powerful. Trust your instincts, and even more, trust who walks beside you. Shadow, with his unshakable loyalty, wasn't just following Martin. He was guiding him, showing that. The safe route had been swallowed by the water. The situation deteriorated with every second, and you ask yourself, in a moment like this, what makes a hero? Is it just instinct or a courage that transcends our own understanding? As Martin pondered, the next step, a different sound mixed with the river's roar. A sound that didn't belong there, a sound of desperation. And that's where the life of our hero dog would change forever. It was right there, in the middle of that chaos, that Martin heard it. It wasn't a roar or the sound of a large animal. It was a cry, a weak, desperate sound coming from the current. His heart raced. When a forest ranger sees something like that, your whole body screams, danger. But Shadow, our loyal Labrador, ignored it all. His eyes, which were once a dark green, turned into a spark of pure courage. Can you believe he didn't even wait for an order? That's the most impressive thing about friendship with a dog. The trust is so great that words become unnecessary. And with the speed of lightning, he jumped into the water. The sound of his body breaking the muddy surface was the only thing Martin heard for a moment. And if you love emotional animal stories, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any. The rescue itself was a battle against the force of the flood. Shadow's strong body seemed like an arrow cutting through the water, swimming against the current with a bone-chilling determination. Anyone who's had a dog knows that, deep down, they were born to help us. In fact, the Labrador breed is known for its innate ability to rescue people and objects in the water. It's as if it's part of his soul, and that's what makes Shadow a true hero. As the current tried to swallow our hero, He was holding something, a small bundle of fur and bones, trembling from the cold and drowning. It was a lion cub, the king of the jungle in its most vulnerable form, barely alive. Just picture this scene for a second. The greatest predator in nature, saved by our best friend. The sight was so surreal that Martin had to shake himself, the sound of their gasping, breaths mixing with the roar of the water. The act of saving that helpless life transcended the fight between predator and prey. What would you do if you saw a helpless creature in distress? Would you have the courage to act like this without thinking about the consequences? Luckily, our hero was there, ready to show that heroism comes from the heart, not from strength. They were a dog and a lion, a miracle by the riverbank, but the care they needed had just begun. The cub was on the verge of death, and the night was just starting. The night seemed like it would never end. When Martin, with his heart in his hands, arrived at the veterinary clinic, the energy of the place was so heavy you could feel it. The air, filled with the smell of antiseptic and a silent tension, seemed to echo the seriousness of the situation. The small lion cub, which seemed like nothing in Martin's arms, was in a critical condition. Each short, weak breath was a battle for its own life. And if you've ever waited for news about someone you love in a hospital waiting room, you know exactly what that knot in your throat feels like. The surprise of the night, however, came from Shadow. While the cub was being seen, our faithful companion sat there, his eyes alert. We worried about him, of course, but we found out that our hero had only suffered a few minor scratches. It's amazing how high a Labrador's resistance can be, isn't it? They are built to handle the rough stuff. And that was the first silent lesson. In life, battles don't always leave visible marks, but courage is what matters. The lion cub, against all odds, survived. The sigh of relief that Martin gave at that moment was the most beautiful sound in the world, and the lightness of this moment brought a feeling that everything was going to be okay. And it was there, watching that fragile little creature fight for its life, that he felt a different kind of connection. Who has ever seen an animal in need and felt it was their mission to care for it? It's a feeling that transforms you. That cub was no longer just a victim of the river, but a miracle that life had given him. With the certainty that the danger had passed, it was time to begin his recovery journey. It turns out that this journey would not be a lonely one. What the following days would reveal was a bond of friendship that defied everything we know. Martin's home, which had always been a peaceful refuge, became the stage for an unlikely friendship. We, with our human perspective, might find it impossible. But for the small lion cub and for Shadow, there was nothing strange about it. In the first few days, the cub hesitated, but Shadow's instinct was clear. He was his responsibility. One of the most beautiful things about animal language is that it doesn't need words, just presence. In a short time, the sound of the cubs, soft purr mixed with Shadow's happy panting, and the house filled with a new energy. Then they started to play. It's funny how nature finds a way. While the cub tried to give little paws, Shadow would roll on the ground as if he were teaching that life can also be light. Did you know that playing is how animals learn survival skills and create social bonds? We often forget to connect with the world in a playful way. They remind us that life also needs moments of joy. Watching the two of them, a future king of the jungle and a loyal friend, was the cutest thing in the world. It was a one-act circus. Who has never felt that an animal understands us to our soul? Their connection deepened. At night, they would sleep together, the cub nestled on Shadow's soft belly, as if the only bed he knew was his friend's protection. The unlikely friendship between the two proved that care and affection overcome any difference. The bond that was forming was so strong, it seemed they were from the same family in a way that defied all the rules of nature. But it was a friendship with an expiration date. That cub was growing fast, and at some point, the wildlife would call him back. How do you prepare a heart for a farewell that seems inevitable? Life, as we know, has its seasons, and the staying-at-home season for the little lion had come to an end. It was time to prepare for the world outside. Martin's decision was to transfer him to a semi-wild enclosure, a place that smelled of freedom and tall grass, a wildlife environment that seemed like an echo of his future. The lion cub needed to awaken his instincts, learn to hunt and survive without human help. But how does a cub that learned to play with a dog transform into a predator? We think that life is only what we teach, but the truth is that a lot of what we are is written in our essence. It's an incredible fact about nature. A lion cub is born with 60% of its brain ready and hunting instincts, no matter how much they are practiced, come from an ancestral memory. It was an intense training. You could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the moment. And then, can you believe that Shadow was there to help? He didn't enter the enclosure, but he stood by the fence, lying down, just watching, like a silent coach. When the cub tried, without success, a small hunt, Shadow seemed to be encouraging him with his gaze. It was a kind of support that went beyond friendship. It was a real-time life lesson. Who has never had a friend who encouraged you to get out of your comfort zone and be your best self? This is the most important preparation we can have. As difficult as the idea of letting go is, the greatest proof of love is giving the tools so the other can live their own freedom. The little lion was getting strong and fearless. The bond of friendship between him and Shadow was stronger than ever, but the end of this journey was closer than they imagined. So, how do you say goodbye to a friend like that? That day, the sun rose differently. A soft, golden glow touched the dew on the grass, but the atmosphere was heavy. After 6 months, the lion cub was no longer a cub. He was grown, with a mane beginning to form, and had become a strong and majestic animal. The time for farewell had come, and the universe seemed to hold its breath. It's that kind of moment that you know has to happen, but still, your heart refuses to accept it. It was the most emotional thing Martin had ever seen. The lion approached Shadow, and instead of a roar, he let out a low sound, a kind of purr that sounded like a goodbye. He rubbed his head against Shadow's body, as if he were holding on to the memory of his friend's touch and smell. Did you know that lions, despite being predators at the top of the food chain, form deep social bonds and miss each other? The silence between the two animals said everything that words couldn't. We, in our rush, forget that animals have a universe of feelings, and they teach us that goodbye can be one of the deepest forms of love. The pain and affection of that farewell were palpable. The pain of a farewell is proof of the size of our affection. It's as if a piece of our heart goes with the other person, and you are left there, just hoping that they find their place in the world. The lion was ready. Martin opened the gate. It was an act of love, of courage. Our lion was free to be who he was born to be, and our hero Shadow was there, watching the most important moment of his friend's life. It wasn't easy, but true friendship is knowing when to let go, even if it's the hardest thing in the world. The bond they had became an eternal memory, but what would happen to the lion from that moment on? And that's how it happened. The gate of the enclosure opened, and an almost sacred silence took over the place. Martin and Shadow watched from afar. The lion, now a complete predator, took a step outside and hesitated. For a moment, he seemed confused. Anyone who has seen a domesticated animal being released into the wild knows that it is not an easy process. But then, as if an ancestral voice had whispered, he smelled the savanna, the breeze that rustled the tall grass, and an electricity ran through his body. He started walking, slowly at first, and then, with a force that only wildlife can give, he let go and started to run. The sound of his strong, fast breathing was the most beautiful melody. The sight of a lion running free, for the first time, is something you don't forget. It's pure beauty and power, all in one being. Did you know that lions can reach up to 80 kilometers per hour in a run? That lion, who was once a fragile little ball, was now a king in his own kingdom. And the return to freedom was more than a liberation. It was a celebration. It's impossible not to visualize that scene of victory. The vastness of the pasture opened up for him, and he became a dot on the horizon. Seeing someone you love reach their potential, running towards their destiny, is one of the most powerful emotions in life. We learn from this that the greatest reward for doing something good is not recognition, but the opportunity to witness the happiness and freedom of another. The lion went on his way. What was left was the immense landscape and the memory of a miracle. The question now is, how do you live with the memory of a friendship like this? What did the memory of those months do to Martin's and Shadow's hearts? The silence that was left behind was different from any other. It was not empty, but full of a peace that only the memory of something pure can bring. The sun, now stronger, warmed Martin's face and Shadow's fur as the two of them stood side by side. The unlikely friendship they had lived was no longer present, but its memory was the most real thing in the world. It was an invisible link, a kind of tattoo on the soul that no distance or time could ever erase. The memory of the days of playing, of the moments of care, and of course, of the heroic rescue was what mattered. Did you know that dogs' memory is mainly associative? They don't think about events like we do, but they link smells, sounds, and feelings to people and places. 4. Shadow. The memory of the lion wouldn't be a static picture, but the sensation of a presence, a bond of friendship that would always be there. It's a beautiful lesson for us. What makes life meaningful are not the things we have, but the bonds we create. We carry our friends in our hearts, and they continue to influence us, even when they are no longer around. It's one of the most beautiful truths about life. And so, the story of Shadow and the small lion becomes more than an animal chronicle. It's a reflection on ourselves. It's about the courage that lives in our chest, the compassion that makes us extend a hand or a paw to those in need. It's a story that reminds us that the strongest bonds don't need words or blood, but a connection that comes from the soul. The lesson of overcoming here is that even when life throws a storm at us, we can find the light and, as a bonus, make a friend we never imagined. And you, have you ever had an animal that changed your life forever? That taught you something about friendship, loyalty, and love that you carry with you to this day. Tell us in the comments. Your story might be the next one to inspire someone. And if this chronicle touched your heart, don't stop here. The next video suggested by YouTube will move you even more. Don't miss it.